Captain stood on the bridge of his exploration ship, watching the stars through the large viewing window. He had been traveling through space for many years, searching for new worlds and lost civilizations. The people were known across the galaxy as careful explorers who studied everything they found. Today felt different. His ship's sensors had picked up something strange floating in the empty space between two star systems. It was big, much bigger than his own vessel, and it was not moving under its own power. "Captain," called Science Officer Al from her workstation, "I am getting clearer readings on the object. It appears to be a ship, but not like any design in our database." Walked over to look at the scanner display. The image showed a massive vessel with sharp angles and a dark hull. Strange markings covered its surface, and it looked like it had been built for war rather than exploration. "How long has it been drifting?" he asked. Al studied the readings carefully. "Based on the energy decay patterns, I estimate it has been dead in space for at least 50 years, possibly much longer. There are no life signs, but I am detecting very faint power signatures deep inside the ship." Security Chief Awoke approached them. He was larger than most, with the scars of an old warrior. "Captain, we should be careful. This ship was clearly built for fighting. We do not know what weapons it might still have." Nodded but could not hide his curiosity. In all his years of exploration, he had never seen a ship like this one. The design was completely alien to anything in the galactic records. The hull appeared to be made of metals his scanners could not identify. "Bring us closer," he ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." As they approached the mysterious vessel, its true size became clear. It was enormous, easily 3 times the length of their exploration ship. The hull was dark gray, almost black, and covered with what looked like battle damage. Large sections were indented, as if the ship had fought in a terrible war. "Captain," Al said, her voice filled with excitement, "I am detecting an airlock that appears to be partially damaged. We could dock there and board the vessel." Awoke shook his head. "This is not wise. We know nothing about who built this ship or what happened to them. It could be dangerous." But was already making his decision. The discovery of a completely unknown civilization was too important to ignore. This could be the find of a lifetime, something that would change their understanding of the galaxy. "Prepare a boarding party," he commanded. "Al, you will come with me to study whatever we find. Okay, I need you for security. We will take minimal equipment and stay in constant contact with the ship." As they prepared to board, studied the strange vessel through the viewing window. The markings on its hull were not random decorations. They looked like symbols, possibly a written language. Some areas of the ship had been painted with bright colors that had faded over time. The docking process was careful and slow. The alien ship's airlock was larger than theirs, built for beings much taller than the. When they finally made contact, there was a slight hiss as the atmospheres equalized. "Air composition is breathable for us," Al reported, checking her instruments. "Oxygen levels are low but safe. Temperature is cold but within acceptable range." Activated his personal recorder and stepped through the airlock. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by their portable lights. Everything was built on a massive scale. The ceiling was high above their heads, and the doorways were wide enough for 3 to walk side by side. "Whoever built this ship was much larger than us," Awoke observed, his weapon ready but not raised. "Look at the size of these controls." They moved slowly through the corridors, their lights revealing walls covered with more of the strange symbols. The ship felt empty and cold, like a tomb that had been sealed for decades. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. "Captain," Al whispered, pointing to panels along the walls. "These appear to be control interfaces, but the technology is completely unfamiliar. The design philosophy is entirely different from anything we have encountered." They found what appeared to be a main corridor running the length of the ship. Doors lined both sides, most of them sealed shut. The few that were open revealed rooms filled with equipment they could not identify. As they walked deeper into the ship, began to feel a strange sensation, as if they were being watched. The ship was clearly dead, with no power except for those faint energy readings, but something about it felt alive. "There," Al said suddenly, pointing ahead. "I am detecting the source of the power signatures. It appears to be coming from a large chamber near the center of the ship." They approached carefully, their lights revealing a massive door marked with symbols larger and more complex than any they had seen. The door was partially open, and cold air flowed out from the darkness beyond. Paused at the threshold. Whatever lay beyond this door might answer the questions about this mysterious ship and its builders, but it might also contain dangers they could not imagine. "Stay close," he told his team. "Record everything. We may be the first to discover what happened to these beings." As they stepped through the doorway, their lights illuminated rows of cylindrical containers stretching into the darkness. Each container was covered with frost, and soft lights blinked slowly on control panels beside them. "Captain," Al breathed, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "These appear to be some kind of preservation chambers, and according to my readings, they are still active." The mystery of the derelict warship was about to become something much more significant than any of them had imagined. The chamber was filled with dozens of the strange cylindrical containers. Each one was about the size of a sleeping pod, but much more complex. Frost covered the clear windows on top, and small lights blinked steadily on control panels attached to each container. Al moved closer to examine one of the devices. "Captain, these are definitely preservation chambers of some kind. The technology is advanced, but completely different from our methods. The power source appears to be some form of energy cell that has been running for decades." Approached another container and wiped the frost from its window. Inside, he could see the outline of a large form. "There is something inside this one. It appears to be a living being." Oke kept his weapon ready while scanning the room. "Captain, I count 43 active containers in this chamber. If these are all occupied, that means we have found survivors of whatever happened to this ship." As they moved through the room, examining the mysterious containers, Al accidentally bumped into a control panel. The panel came to life with bright lights and strange sounds. Suddenly, all the containers in the room began to hum with increased power. "What did you do?" asked urgently. "I do not know," Al replied, studying her scanner. "It appears I have activated some kind of emergency sequence. The containers are warming up and the preservation process is revering." Red lights began flashing throughout the chamber, and a voice spoke in the unknown language over speakers they could not see. The voice was deep and strong, clearly belonging to one of the large beings they had discovered. "We need to move back," Oke said. "We do not know how these beings will react when they wake up." But it was too late to leave. The first container near them made a loud hissing sound as its seal broke. Steam poured out as the lid slowly opened. The three watched in amazement and fear as a huge form sat up inside the container. The being was enormous, nearly twice the height of a when standing. Its skin was pale from long sleep, and it had hair on its head and face. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform, dark blue with silver markings. The being looked around with confusion, then focused on the three aliens standing nearby. Its eyes were small and intense, and its mouth opened to show white teeth. It spoke in the same deep voice they had heard from the speakers. "I am Commander Jake of the Human Defense Force," the being said, though they could not understand the words. "Identify yourselves immediately." More containers were opening throughout the chamber. Other large beings were waking up, all wearing similar uniforms. Some had longer hair and appeared to be female, while others were clearly male. All of them looked confused and alert. One of the female beings approached Jake. She was smaller than him but still much larger than any. Her hair was dark and pulled back, and she moved with the confidence of someone used to giving orders. "Jake, where are we?" she asked. "The last thing I remember was the battle with the Devourers. How long were we out?" "I do not know, Lisa," Jake replied, looking around the chamber. "But we have visitors." Another being joined them, this one with dark skin and powerful muscles. His uniform marked him as an engineer. "Commander, the ship feels different. The gravity is wrong, and I can hear other engines nearby." Jake turned his attention back to the three. His hand moved to his side, where a weapon was attached to his belt. "I repeat, identify yourselves. Are you Devourers?" Realized that these beings saw them as a threat. He slowly raised his hands to show he was not armed. "We are peaceful explorers," he said in his own language. Hopping his tone would convey his meaning. A fourth human approached the group. This one was clearly a medical officer, with equipment on her uniform and a calm manner. She studied them with interest rather than fear. "Jake, look at them carefully," she said. "They are not machines like the Devourers. They appear to be organic beings, probably from a different world. And look at their equipment. It is clearly scientific, not military." "Dr. Amy Foster is right," said another voice. A large human with weapons training stepped forward. "But we should still be careful, Commander. We do not know what happened while we were asleep." Jake studied the three aliens for a long moment. They remained still, not wanting to provoke a fight they could not win. Finally, Jake made a decision. "Amy, see if you can communicate with them. Use basic mathematics or pictures if you have to. We need to know what happened to us." Dr. Amy Foster approached them slowly. She pointed to herself and said, "Human." Then she pointed to them and raised her eyebrows in question. "Understood." He pointed to himself and said. Then he pointed to his companions and repeated the word. Amy smiled, which seemed to be a friendly expression among her people. She held up one finger, then two, then three. Al quickly understood and repeated the gesture. "Good," Amy said. "Now we are getting somewhere." As more humans awakened from their long sleep, the chamber filled with activity. The humans were clearly military personnel, but they were also curious about their unexpected guests. They had found more than just a derelict ship. They had found the survivors of an unknown civilization. Jake watched the careful attempts at communication while trying to understand what had happened to his ship and crew. The last thing he remembered was the final battle against the machines that had destroyed Earth. Now, he was awake in a chamber full of aliens who seemed to be trying to help rather than harm them. "Lisa," he said to his second in command, "I think we are not in Kansas anymore." The real challenge was just beginning. Two completely different species were meeting for the first time, and neither knew what to expect from the other. Over the next few hours, Dr. Amy Foster and Science Officer Al worked together to build a basic way to communicate. They used pictures, numbers, and simple gestures to share ideas. Slowly, both groups began to understand each other better. Jake watched the process with growing concern. His military training told him to be suspicious of any alien contact. The last aliens his people had met were the Devourers, machines that had destroyed every human world they could find. "Amy, ask them how long we were asleep," Jake said. "I need to know what happened while we were out." Dr. Foster drew pictures on a portable screen. She showed the sun rising and setting many times, then pointed to the humans and made sleeping gestures. Al understood and began working on her own device. The science officer showed them numbers on her scanner. The translation was difficult, but the meaning became clear. The humans had been asleep for over 200 years. 2 centuries, Lisa Martinez said quietly. "Jake, that means everyone we knew is gone. Our families, our friends, everyone." Bobby looked around the chamber at his sleeping. "What about Earth? What about the colonies? Did we win the war?" Jake turned to Dr. Foster. "Ask them about other humans. Ask if they have seen any human ships or colonies." This was a harder question to communicate, but Amy and Al worked together. Amy drew pictures of ships like theirs and pointed to different stars on a star chart. She made questioning gestures. Al looked sad as she shook her head. She showed them a galactic map on her device and pointed to many different worlds. Then she made a gesture that clearly meant gone or dead. Captain approached the group. He had been watching the communication attempts and learning some basic human gestures. He pointed to the humans, then made a sweeping motion across the star map and shook his head sadly. "I think he is saying that no humans have been found anywhere in the galaxy," Amy said, her voice troubled. "I think they believe our entire species is extinct." The weight of this news hit the human crew hard. Tony, who had been standing guard nearby, stepped forward angrily. "They could be lying. How do we know they did not destroy our worlds themselves?" But Jake was beginning to understand the truth. He had been a military commander for many years, and he could read people well. These aliens did not act like conquerors. They acted like scientists who had made an unexpected discovery. "Amy, asked them about the machines," Jake said. "The Devourers. Ask if they know what happened to them." This took longer to communicate, but eventually Amy was able to draw pictures of mechanical beings attacking planets. Al and both reacted strongly to these images. Began speaking rapidly in his own language to his companions. Then he turned to his scanner and showed the humans historical records. The images were clear enough to understand even without words. The records showed a great war that had happened across the galaxy. Machine beings, similar to what the humans called Devourers, had attacked many worlds. Different alien species had joined together to fight them. The war had lasted for decades. "They stopped them," Amy said, translating what she could understand from the images. "The galaxy united and defeated the machines, but not before many species were lost." Jake studied the historical records. The timeline matched what he remembered. The final battle his ship had fought was part of this great war. But while the galaxy had eventually won, humanity had been lost in the early stages of the conflict. "We were written off," Lisa said bitterly. "While we were sleeping, the rest of the galaxy forgot we ever existed." Dr. Foster continued working with Al to learn more about galactic history. What she discovered was both hopeful and troubling. The galaxy had indeed united after the war. Different species worked together peacefully, sharing knowledge and resources. But as far as anyone knew, humans were extinct. No human colonies had been found. No human ships had been seen. No human signals had been detected for over 150 years. "Jake," Amy said carefully, "I need to show you something important." She led him to the medical section of their ship, which had remained sealed during their long sleep. Inside were rows of storage containers, each one carefully labeled and maintained by automated systems. "Before the final battle, the Defense Force gave me a special mission," Amy explained. "I was ordered to preserve genetic samples from thousands of humans, DNA, embryos, everything needed to restart our species if we found a safe place." Jake looked at the storage containers with amazement. "How many?" "Enough to rebuild the human race," Amy said. "But only if we can find a world suitable for our people, and only if we can keep these samples safe." This changed everything. They were not just the last survivors of humanity. They were carrying the future of their entire species. Tony had followed them and heard the conversation. "Commander, this makes our situation even more dangerous. If these aliens learn about the genetic samples, they might try to take them." But Jake was thinking about larger questions. His crew of 43 people could not rebuild humanity alone. They needed help, resources, and most importantly, a safe place to start over. "Amy, ask them about their intentions," he said. "Ask them what they plan to do with us." When this question was finally communicated, Captain responded by showing them images of his own ship and pointing toward the stars. He made gestures that suggested travel and cooperation. "I think he is offering to help us," Amy said. "But Jake, we have to decide if we can trust them." The future of humanity hung in the balance, and the decision rested with a military commander who had gone to sleep during wartime and awakened to find his species extinct. Jake stood in the command center of his ship, looking at the reports his crew had prepared. 3 days had passed since they woke up to find aliens aboard their vessel. 3 days of careful communication and growing understanding. But now he had to make the most important decision of his life. His senior officers sat around the table, each one representing a different view of their situation. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on all of them. "We cannot trust them," Tony said firmly. "Commander, these aliens found us when we were helpless. They could have taken our ship, our technology, everything. The fact that they woke us up might just mean they want information from us." Lisa Martinez shook her head. "Tony, think about what you are saying. If they wanted to hurt us, they had 200 years to do it while we were sleeping. They could have studied our ship, taken what they wanted, and left us to die." "Maybe they needed us alive for some reason," Tony argued. "Maybe they need our genetic codes or our memories. We know nothing about these creatures or what they really want." Bobby had been quiet during most of their discussions, but now he spoke up. "Commander, I have been working with their engineer, the one called Awoke. He has shown me damage to our ship that I did not even know existed. Our power systems are failing, our life support is running on backup power, and our navigation computers are completely dead." "What are you saying, Bobby?" Jake asked. "I am saying that without help, we will be dead within 6 months. Our ship cannot support 43 people much longer. We need parts, we need fuel, and we need technical assistance that we cannot provide for ourselves." Dr. Amy Foster had spent the most time with the aliens, working to improve communication between the species. She had learned more about their visitors than anyone else. "Jake, I have been studying their behavior and their technology," she said. "These people are not warriors. They are explorers and scientists. Their ship has no weapons that I can detect. Their entire culture seems to be based on learning and discovery." "That could be an act," Tony said, "a way to make us trust them." "For what purpose?" Amy asked. "Tony, we are 43 people with a broken ship. What threat could we possibly be to a galactic civilization? What could they want from us that they could not simply take?" Jake had been listening to similar arguments for days. His military training told him to be suspicious, but his practical mind saw the reality of their situation. They were alone, far from any human territory, with a ship that was slowly dying. "Tell me about their offer again," he said to Amy. Amy consulted her notes. "Captain says his people are part of something called the Concordat. It is a group of different alien species that work together peacefully. They explore space, share knowledge, and help each other. And they want us to join this group." "Not exactly," Amy said. "They want to take us to Concordat space, where we can meet with their leaders. They say the leaders will decide if humanity can be given a place in their community." Lisa leaned forward. "What do they want in return?" "Knowledge," Amy replied. "They want to learn about human culture, our history, and our technology. They seem especially interested in our military tactics and our ability to fight the Devourers." Tony laughed bitterly. "Our great military tactics that got our entire species destroyed." "But we did fight them," Bobby pointed out. "According to what the aliens have told us, humans held out longer against the Devourers than most other species. That might be valuable to them." Jake stood up and walked to the viewing window. Outside, he could see the ship positioned nearby. It was sleek and peaceful looking, nothing like the war machines humanity had built to fight the Devourers. "There is something else we need to consider," he said quietly. "The genetic samples in our medical bay." This brought silence to the room. Everyone knew about Dr. Foster's secret cargo, but they had not discussed it openly until now. Those samples represent millions of potential human lives, Jake continued. But they are useless unless we can find a safe place to use them. We need a world with the right atmosphere, the right resources, and protection from any threats. The aliens have offered us such a world, Amy said. Captain showed me star charts of dozens of planets suitable for human life. Some of them are empty, available for colonization. If we can trust them, Tony added. Jake turned back to his officers. Let me ask you this. What choice do we really have? We can stay here with our broken ship and die slowly. We can try to find our own way and probably die faster. Or we can accept their help and take the risk that they are telling the truth. There is another option, Tony said quietly. Everyone looked at him. We could take their ship. The suggestion hung in the air like a poison cloud. Lisa was the first to respond. Tony, that would make us no better than pirates or murderers. These people saved our lives. They are aliens, Tony replied. Our duty is to humanity first. Our duty is to do what is right, Jake said firmly. And attacking people who have helped us is not right. Bobby nodded in agreement. Commander, I have worked with their people. They have shared their technical knowledge freely. They have helped us repair critical systems. If we betray that trust, we become the monsters. Jake made his decision, but he knew it would change everything for all of them. We will accept their offer, he announced. We will go with them to Concordat space and meet with their leaders, but we go as equals, not as beggars. We have something to offer them too. Tony stood up angrily. Commander, you are gambling with the future of our entire species. Yes, I am, Jake replied calmly. But the alternative is to guarantee our extinction through fear and mistrust. The die was cast. Humanity's future would depend on trust between species that had never met before. The journey to Concordat space took 3 weeks. During that time, the two ships traveled together through the vast emptiness between stars. Every day brought new discoveries and growing friendship between the humans and Jake watched from his bridge as Bobby worked alongside Awoke to repair the ship's main engines. The two engineers had found ways to communicate through drawings and hand gestures. Despite being from different worlds, they understood each other perfectly when it came to fixing machines. Commander, Lisa Martinez called from her station. We are receiving a transmission from Captain. He says we will reach the first Concordat outpost in 2 days. Jake nodded, but his mind was focused on the changes he had seen in his crew. Tony had slowly begun to trust their alien guides. Working with Security Chief Awoke had shown him that not all aliens were enemies like the Devourers. Dr. Amy Foster had made the most progress in learning the language. She spent hours each day working with Science Officer Al, sharing knowledge about human medicine and biology. In return, she learned about the dozens of different species that made up the Concordat. Jake, Amy said, approaching him with excitement in her voice. Al just showed me something amazing. The Concordat has preserved genetic samples from over 30 species that were thought to be extinct. They have actually helped 3 of those species return to life. This news filled Jake with hope. If the Concordat had experience bringing back extinct species, they might be able to help humanity rebuild properly. When they finally reached Concordat space, Jake was amazed by what he saw. Dozens of different types of ships moved peacefully through the star system. Space stations the size of small moons orbited planets that clearly supported multiple forms of life. Look at that, Lisa said in wonder, pointing to a massive ship passing nearby. It must be carrying thousands of beings. Captain contacted them with news. The Galactic Council had agreed to meet with the humans immediately. The discovery of living humans had caused excitement throughout Concordat space. The meeting took place on a space station near the system's largest planet. Jake, Lisa, Amy, Bobby, and Tony traveled to the station in a small shuttle, accompanied by their friends. The council chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from many different species. Jake saw beings that walked on 4 legs, others that flew with wings, and some that looked like living crystals. All of them stared at the humans with curiosity and wonder. The council leader was an ancient being with silver skin and wise eyes. She spoke in a voice that was somehow translated for the humans to understand. "We welcome the return of humanity to the galaxy," she said. "We had believed your species was lost forever. Your survival is a gift to all of us." Jake stepped forward to respond. "We are grateful for the help we have received from Captain and his crew, but we need more than welcome words. We need a place to rebuild our civilization." "Of course," the council leader said. "We have prepared several worlds for your consideration. All of them have the right atmosphere and resources for human life. You may choose whichever one seems best for your people." Amy joined the conversation. "We have genetic samples that could restore our species to full population over time, but we will need help with the technology and resources to make that happen." "The Concordat has experience with such projects," another council member said. "This one looked like a large insect but spoke with kindness. We will provide all the assistance you need." The negotiations continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Concordat wanted humanity to join their alliance. In return for a new world and help rebuilding their species, humans would share their knowledge and become part of the galactic community. 3 months later, Jake stood on the surface of their new world. The planet had blue skies, green forests, and clean oceans. It was smaller than Earth but perfect for human life. The first human settlement was already taking shape. Bobby worked with engineers from 6 different species to build homes and factories. Amy Foster ran the genetic laboratory, where the first new humans in centuries would soon be born. Lisa Martinez had been chosen as humanity's first planetary governor. She worked with alien advisors to plan cities and farms that would support millions of people in the future. Tony trained the first new human security force. But instead of preparing for war, they were learning to work with alien peacekeepers to protect their new world from natural disasters and accidents. Jake watched children playing in the settlement's Central Park. These were not human children yet, but young aliens whose parents had come to help build the new colony. Soon, there would be human children playing alongside them. Dr. Amy Foster approached him with a smile. "The first group of genetic samples will be ready for development next month. In less than a year, we will have the first new generation of humans. And they will grow up in a galaxy where humans are not alone," Jake said. "They will never know the fear we lived with during the war." The USS Defiant remained in orbit above their new world, but it was no longer a warship. It had been converted into a research vessel and memorial. New human ships were being built in orbital factories, designed for exploration rather than war. Jake looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them were other worlds where humans would soon live. The genetic samples would allow them to establish colonies throughout Concordat space. The last survivors of humanity had become the first citizens of a new human civilization. What the aliens had awakened was not just a crew, but the rebirth of an entire species. The future was bright with possibilities that none of them had dared to imagine during those dark days of war. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as partners in a galaxy filled with friends.